You are now listening to Mark's Unexplained World by Mark the Medium, available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime, Podbean and most other podcast platforms. Tonight's episode is about the case of Nahir Galarza. So it's over to you now, Mark.
The Nahir Galarza case was an Argentine judicial process in which the 19-year-old Nahir Mariana Galarza was convicted of murdering her 20-year-old boyfriend, Fernando Pastorizzo, at dawn on the 29th of December 2017 in the city of Gualeguaychú, Entre Ríos, in Argentina, where they had both originally lived. In video footage obtained by the police from a private security camera, it shows a person physically similar to Nahir Galarza walking around a few blocks away from the location of Fernando Pastorizzo's murder. And according to the prosecution, this footage was pivotal in placing Nahir Galarza at the crime scene, even though her family denied that the person being filmed was actually their daughter. But on the 3rd of July in 2018, Nahir Galarza was declared guilty of aggravated murder, meaning that she would effectively have to serve at least 35 years behind bars, with the homicide of the young Fernando Pastorizzo making the headlines of several newspapers, including both the Argentine and international media. To date, with her age being just 19 years, 7 months and 21 days old at the time of her conviction, Nahir Galarza was the youngest woman in Argentina to have been sentenced to life in prison. Greetings, Unexplainers. Thank you for tuning in once again and listening to this true crime episode of Mark's Unexplained World. My name is Mark Hughes. I'm a medium, an oracle card reader, a paranormal investigator, a ufologist, and last but not least, an avid true crime buff. And just to give you a better idea of who I am and what I do, every Monday night, although occasionally on a Tuesday, allowing for bank holidays and busy weekends, I do a podcast on the many wide and various subjects that fall under the Unexplained banner. These include ufology, hauntings, disasters, and all sorts of paranormal phenomena, including true crime, unsolved crime, and the many missing people that often go unnoticed in this world. So if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any of the other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the twisted tales surrounding the case of Nahir Galarza. And this week's necessary disclaimer. Well, this story is a tale that sadly involves murder, so may prove upsetting to some. You listen at your own discretion. Also, all opinions and comments are strictly my own, but the facts of the case remain. I also apologise if I pronounce anything incorrectly. My English, although it is my first and only language, sounds even worse when I talk to myself. Anyway, let us get back to the story at hand. According to Wikipedia, Gualeguaychú is a city in the province of Entre Ríos in Argentina, on the left bank of the Gualeguaychú River, which is also a tributary to the Uruguay River. It is located on the southeast of the province, which is approximately 230 kilometres northwest of Buenos Aires, and, as of the 2010 census, it has a population of 109,266 people. The city of Gualeguaychú itself is located near the National Route 14, which is a route that connects Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires, to the northeastern end of the Argentine Mesopotamia region. Due to it being at the opposite end of the city known as Fray Bentos at the Argentine-Uruguay border, Gualeguaychú hosts an annual carnival that is regionally well known and attended by people from many other provinces and even countries from around the world. The Gualeguaychú Carnival is not only considered as one of the largest in the world, but it is also the home to hot springs, beach resorts and a casino. Nahir Mariana Galarza was born on the 11th of September in 1998 to parents Yamina Kroll, her mother, and her father, who was also an officer of the provincial police department, Marcelo Galarza. At the time of the crime, Nahir Galarza was a law student at the Universidad de Concepción del Uruguay, where she not only studied law, but she also played field hockey. To be honest with you, Unexplainers, I only mention the field hockey thing as it has been reported that it may have been this activity that had influenced her aggression. When Nahir Galarza was 16 years old, she suddenly disappeared just for one day. So, as a consequence of this vanishing, she was reported to law enforcement as being kidnapped. However, it was soon discovered that this kidnapping was actually false. Fernando Pastorizzo was murdered on the 26th of December in 2017 at the Thomas de Rocoma by 2 firearm shots in a neighbourhood in their hometown of Gualeguaychú. Shortly before his murder, Fernando Pastorizzo was driving Nahir Galarza as a passenger on the back of his motorcycle. When the couple stopped, for whatever reason, and after being shot at twice, his body was then left lying on the ground beside his motorcycle, and Nahir Galarza calmly walked away, about 20 blocks or so away, to her own home. Next morning, after Fernando Pastorizzo's corpse was found, Nahir Galarza published a photograph from a previous event they had both attended of her and her now deceased boyfriend onto social media sites with the following description, and I quote,
5 years together, fighting, going forward and coming back, but always with the same love. I love you forever, my angel.
Boy, that is just cold, isn't it? Anyway, I continue. Nahir Galarza did eventually confess to her crime of shooting Fernando Pastorizzo, first to her parents and then to the authorities by asserting that she shot him with her father's gun, a 9mm Luger, that she had taken with her and that she had returned it to where she had found it without her father noticing. And while Nahir Galarza was on a roll, she also explained that she first shot Fernando Pastorizzo in his back and then in his chest. On an interesting side note, the 9mm Luger, or 9mm NATO, is a rimless centre-fire and tapered firearms cartridge. It was originally designed by the Austrian firearms designer George Luger in 1901, and it is widely considered the most popular handgun and submarine machine gun cartridge due to its low cost, adequate stopping power, and its extensive availability. Since the cartridge was designed for the Luger semi-automatic pistol, it has been given the designation of a 9mm Luger by the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute. In footage obtained by the local law enforcement from a private security camera, a person that was physically similar to Nahir Galarza in build is seen walking some 6 blocks away from the location of Fernando Pastorizzo's murder at around 5:22 a.m. And even though her family denied that the person in the film was her, according to prosecutors, this camera footage is pivotal in putting Nahir Galarza at the crime scene. So, along with this camera footage and her confession, Nahir Galarza was prosecuted for bond aggravated homicide and arrested under preventive detention, which was a condition under which she remained until her conviction. After this first short break, in part 2, we will look at Nahir Galarza's relationship with Fernando Pastorizzo and her arrest and trial.
This show is brought to you courtesy of Neil Packer and the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre. Find them online at www.hauntedresearchcentre.com or at 9 to 11 Regent Street, Hinckley, LE10 1AW. Open on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for guided tours of the haunted rooms at just £3 per person. Booking is essential at all times, and over 16s only, please, unless accompanied by an adult. The haunted rooms are extremely haunted, and paranormal activity could and has taken place at any time. Some areas and particular objects or items can be quite scary and unnerving. Membership is available for £25 to qualify for selective offers. And why not download the app, available on both iOS and Android, for only $3.99, to keep up to date with what is coming up at the centre.
So, what of the relationship between Nahir Galarza and Fernando Pastorizzo? Well, both Nahir Galarza and her partner and eventual victim, Fernando Gabriel Pastorizzo, who was born on the 3rd of January 1997, lived in the city of Gualeguaychú, and they both started a relationship in or around the year of 2012. It is safe to say that the nature of their relationship has come under much discussion, both during them, for the want of a better word, dating, and after the crime was committed. During the trial, Nahir Galarza's defenders supported the idea that the couple only had casual sexual encounters, but the prosecution, on the other hand, upheld the belief that they constituted a couple, even though they didn't actually live together. At first, Nahir Galarza's parents initially denied knowing Fernando Pastorizzo, but in the January of 2018, investigators discovered various text messages and some photographs of both Nahir Galarza and Fernando Pastorizzo, along with her family, from when they all travelled to Brazil together in the summer of 2016, which, let us be honest now, strongly supports the idea that Nahir's parents knew who Fernando Pastorizzo was all along. Ooh, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when that revelation was put to them. Anyway, I continue. The courts, in the end, accepted the latter version of the relationship in that Nahir Galarza and Fernando Pastorizzo were in fact a couple. Another theme regarding the case was the circumstances under which the couple's relationship developed, in that some pieces of evidence, such as text messages and Twitter posts, suggest that the relationship itself was full of violence, fights and temporary reconciliations. And according to the Galarza family, it was their daughter, Nahir, that was the one suffering brutality from Fernando Pastorizzo. However, the court dismissed the notion that Nahir Galarza suffered any physical violence from her boyfriend, Fernando Pastorizzo, with the Superior Justice Court of Entre Ríos asserting that all the defence was trying to do was demonise the victim. There was also numerous opinions and declarations from friends and family of both Galarza and Pastorizzo that were published on various social media sites regarding the couple's relationship, with some good points and some bad. As I previously mentioned, evidence that Nahir Galarza and Fernando Pastorizzo had a stable relationship was obtained from various testimonies, documents, photographs and text messages. Forensic analysis rejected the idea that the shots fired from Nahir Galarza were accidental, and according to an expert, the first of the two shots had a 50% chance of being accidental, but the second shot was clearly intentional. And finally, it was concluded that there was no evidence of any aggression by Fernando Pastorizzo, rejecting the extenuating circumstances that was originally proposed by Nahir Galarza's defence. These blooming names, I tell you. On the 3rd of July, Nahir Galarza was declared guilty of aggravated murder and condemned to a life sentence. She was charged with the term aggravated murder, which is more serious charge than, say, just murder, simply because she was in a stable relationship with the victim. And even though the court rejected aggravations for firearm usage that were proposed by the prosecution, this sentence still means that Nahir Galarza would effectively have to serve at least 35 years in prison. On the 4th of September in 2018, it was announced that Nahir Galarza, after staying the longest time allowed by law under custody in a police station, which according to Wikipedia in Argentina it's 8 months, she would be transferred to a common women's penitentiary called Unidad Penal 60 Paraná, which she was finally moved to on the 10th of September later that same year by the Entre Ríos Penitentiary Service. Just a short but interesting side note here, the Unidad Penal 60 Panorama Penitentiary is the only women's jail in Entre Ríos where Nahir Galarza and 9 other inmates still, to this day, reside. And, according to an Argentinian website called LA100, it says, and I quote,
"The facilities at the Penal 60 Paraná Penitentiary is austere, but the prison officers' various workshops, including things like sewing, that seek to provide practical skills to the inmates and an environment for resocialization."
Also, according to the website, and again I quote,
"The laundry provides services both inside the prison and to external clients, allowing the inmates to earn money with their work. The income generated is reinvested in improving the facilities and allows the women to cover their minimum expenses.
Later, in the same year that Nahir Galarza was transferred to the Penal 6D Panorama Penitentiary in 2018, it was reported that amongst her sewing, washing and ironing duties, she was also studying, of all things, psychology. In the August of 2019, an appellate court rejected an appeal by Nahir Galarza's defence team, but all it really did was confirm her life imprisonment. An appellate court is a place that reviews procedures and decisions in trial courts to ensure fairness and that a proper application of the law is put in place. It also hears appeals from trial courts and other lower tribunals. An appellate court features only a committee of judges without a jury. In the March of 2020, the Supreme Justice Court of Entre Ríos rejected another appeal to revert Nahir Galarza's life imprisonment. This means, of course, in total, her defence has by now made 2 appeals, with both being denied. This does mean that the last and only means of appeal that Nahir Galarza's defence team has for revising her life imprisonment is through the National Court. So, as they say, watch this space. In the January of 2022, somewhat bizarrely and for reasons I can't seem to find at the moment as a lot of the case is written in Spanish, Nahir Galarza, with the help from her mother, Janina Kroll, then hired a different defender, which led to the reporting of Nahir Galarza's father and Janina Kroll's husband, Marcelo Galarza, who, if you remember, was also an officer of the Provincial Police Department, for aggression. However, this accusation was very soon rejected. But having said that, there is a restraining order prohibiting Marcelo Galarza from getting close to either Janina Kroll or the penitentiary where his daughter resides. On an interesting side note, and according to the local solicitor's website, restraining orders are issued by a court and serve to prevent one person from a continuation in behaviour towards another. The restraining order itself aims to offer protection to the person who has applied for it and can run for a length of time that is determined by the court. A restraining order can be applied for when a person believes that they are threatened or their quality of life is inhibited by another person, meaning the defendant, of course. The order will prohibit the defendant from continuing to engage in conduct towards the applicant and in turn will help protect the victim. Before the end of September 2009, restraining orders were only issued following the conviction of a defendant of crime set out in the Prosecution from Harassment Act 1997. However, this act was revised by the Domestic Violence Crime and Victims Act 2004, and these amendments meant that an offender who was convicted or acquitted after this date of any offence can have a restraining order issued against them. After this second short break, in part 3, we will look at how the Nahir Galarza case affected the local community.
Fright Nights was established in 1999 as the first company in the world to offer overnight ghost hunt experiences to the general public, pioneering paranormal events since the last century. Fright Nights operate at hundreds of the UK's most haunted and exclusive venues. All events have their own team of experienced paranormal investigators, mediums and psychics. They have a VIP members club for regular returning guests, offering loyalty discounts and exclusive invitation-only events. They can also host private events for your family and friends. You can contact them on 07852 998 628 or email them at office@frightnights.co.uk or take a look at their website at www.frightnights.co.uk, where you can see the many locations they investigate and learn about them and the opportunities they have available. Hundreds of ghost hunters join Fright Nights every month for the most thrilling ghost hunting experiences they'll never forget. If you haven't been on a ghost hunt before, then why not join them to see what it's all about? Why not visit their social media sites for up-to-date information on all the places they visit and to see what's coming up in the future? They look forward to seeing you all soon. Fright Nights Ghost Hunting Events. Remember, only the original will do.
The murder of young 20-year-old Fernando Pastorizzo was widely recovered by both Argentine and international media, with it making the headlines of several newspapers and the focus of numerous news reports in both radio and television. A few days later, after the crime came to light, Nahir Galarza's family hired a public relations agent who, in turn, provided the press with some photographs of Nahir Galarza when she was just a baby, which was probably an attempt to get some sympathy out of the general public. On an interesting side note here, public relations, or PR for short, are the practice of managing and disseminating information from an individual or an organisation, such as a business, government agency or a non-profit organisation, to the public to influence their perception. Public relations and publicity differ in that PR is controlled internally, whereas publicity is not controlled but contributed by external parties. Public relations may include an organisation or individual gaining exposure to their audience using topics of public interest and news items, with the exposure being mostly media-based, and this differentiates it from advertising as a form of marketing communications. Public relations professionals serve both the public's interest and private interests of businesses, associations, non-profit organisations and governments. During my research, I also came across the darker side of PR, which is also known as negative public relations, or dark public relations, along with black hat PR, which is a process of destroying the target's reputation and or corporate identity. The objective in negative public relations is to discredit someone else who may pose a threat to the client's business or be a political rival. It may rely on IT security, industrial espionage, social engineering and competitive intelligence. Common techniques for negative public relations include using dirty secrets from the target or producing misleading facts to fool a competitor. In politics, a decision to use negative PR is also known as negative campaigning. The Nahir Galarza case was also the subject of diverging opinions on social media, with the personal accounts of Nahir being filled with both support and condemnation messages. And although her Instagram account was terminated after her imprisonment, it came back a few days later on the Tuesday of the 10th of January 2019. However, there were some changes made, such as blurred photographs and some profiles unfollowed. Surprisingly enough, although to be honest, me being a bit of a crime buff, it didn't really surprise me that much, her Instagram account surpassed 30,000 followers in less than 24 hours, which is actually spot on, as out of curiosity I went to see her account for myself, and it currently stands, at the time of this show, at 30,800 followers. On the 2nd of January in 2018, a demonstration took place in front of the Gualeguaychú courts, which included hundreds of people holding various banners, signs and pictures of the victim, Mr. Fernando Pastorizzo himself. The main reason for this protest was against the supposedly privileged conditions under which Nahir Galarza had now found herself. On the 3rd of January 2018, the day in which Fernando Pastorizzo would have turned 21, his friends and family members published a supporting message and photographs of him with memories asking for what they felt would be proper justice for Nahir Galarza's crime. On the 10th of July in 2018, a group called the Todo Preso El Politico, which translated to English means every prisoner is a political prisoner, promoted a demonstration in front of the Casa de Entre Ríos in Buenos Aires, in other words, the Superior Justice Court of Entre Ríos, to demand, and I quote,
"Immediate freedom
for Nahir Galarza." Other slogans in their demonstration included, and again I quote,
"A male's death is not just a metaphor. Fear will change sides."
This group also spoke about hetero-patriarchal violence and hegemonic feminism, and asserted that, and again once more I quote,
"In the last 6 months, Nahir Galarza has suffered a true witch hunt led by communication means. The judiciary and the commonly called public opinion."
Actually, before I end this episode, I'm going to just touch on the subject of political prisoners.
Why?
Well, why not? According to Wikipedia, a political prisoner is someone imprisoned for their political activity. However, the political offence is not always the official reason for the prisoner's detention. There is no internationally recognised legal definition for the concept of a political prisoner, although numerous similar definitions have been proposed by various organisations and scholars over the years. There is a consensus among scholars that, and I quote,
"Individuals have been sanctioned by legal systems and imprisoned by political regimes not for their violation of codified laws, but for their thoughts and ideas that have fundamentally challenged existing power relations."
The status of a political prisoner is generally awarded to individuals based on the declarations of non-governmental organisations like Amnesty International, which is an international non-governmental organisation focused on human rights on a case-by-case basis. While such statutes as a political prisoner are often widely recognised by the international public, they are often rejected by individual governments who are accused of holding political prisoners, which tend to deny any bias in their judicial systems. A related term for a political prisoner is a prisoner of conscience, or a POC for short, which is popularised again by Amnesty International, describing someone who was prosecuted because of their personal beliefs. Some prisons, known as political prisons, are accustomed or designed solely for hosting political prisoners. To date, at 19 years, 7 months and 21 days old at the time of her sentencing, Nahir Galarza is the youngest woman in Argentina to have been sentenced to life imprisonment.
Thank you all for taking the time out to listen to this episode of Mark's Unexplained World. In our next episode, show number 129, we are going to be looking at the Holmesburg prison experiments. Given the nickname the Terrordome, Holmesburg was a prison operated by the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the Pennsylvania Department of Prisons from 1896 to 1995. It was the state of controversial, decades-long dermatological, pharmaceutical and biochemical weapons research projects involving testing on inmates.
This show was written and researched by myself, Mark Hughes, and proofread and edited by Linda Hughes. The pronunciations of all the names were both of us this time. Especially some of that. Yeah, my apologies to the Pastorizzo family. I really do. Anyway, the actors in this episode were Mark Hughes, Linda Hughes and Denise Poolar. With special thanks, of course, to Neil Packer and the staff at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley. And a big thank you to everyone for listening. We never run out of ideas here at the office for Mark's Unexplained World. But if you know of any other intriguing stories under the Unexplained banner, including ufology, hauntings, disasters, and any other sort of paranormal phenomena, as well as true crime, unsolved crime, and missing people, just drop me a direct message and I will see what I can do. I'll also include the name of the person who suggested the idea in the end credits of the podcast, if they want me to, of course. And again, just to add, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. I thank you in advance. Mark's Unexplained World, because there's more to the paranormal than meets the third eye. And remember, guys, keep it real, because being real is better than being perfect. This show and all its contents are covered by basic copyright of Mark the Medium.